The golden hues of sunset poured over the treetops as Erin drove through the winding country highway, her fingers lightly tapping the steering wheel. The road was empty, lined with tall, swaying pines that whispered in the wind. It was supposed to be a peaceful getaway, a solo weekend to clear her thoughts and disconnect from the noise of her life. Her phone had already lost signal 20 minutes ago, and she welcomed the silence. But just as she passed a small clearing, a crooked wooden sign emerged at the fork in the road. It read, "Devil's Path Scenic View," hand-painted and faded. Without thinking, Erin turned onto it. The path narrowed quickly, the pavement cracking beneath her tires and vanishing into patches of dirt and moss. Trees leaned unnaturally close to the road, branches arching above like ribs closing in. The forest grew thicker, darker, pressing in from both sides. Her headlights flickered as the shadows lengthened, even though it wasn't fully night yet. The temperature inside the car dropped. She turned up the heat, glancing at the frozen GPS. Her location no longer loading. It simply showed her vehicle icon spinning in place. The road behind her dissolved into fog as if erased. There was no turning back now. The quiet wasn't peaceful anymore. It was suffocating. The only sounds were her tires crunching over leaves and her own uneven breathing. She gripped the wheel tighter, eyes darting between the trees. Something felt wrong, not just eerie, but off. She passed a weathered wooden post nailed with torn flyers. Missing people, dozens of them. Names barely legible. The trees thickened again, and then, without warning, the path opened into a sudden clearing. Her heart skipped. A small town appeared in the distance. Old, gray, and forgotten, like it hadn't seen life in decades. She didn't remember it on any map. She didn't care. She just wanted out. Pulling up to the town's edge, Erin parked near a broken lamppost beside a boarded-up diner. Her headlights flicked again, dimming. The building stood tall but crumbled, covered in vines, yet somehow untouched by time. Not a single person in sight. As she stepped out of the car, the door creaked louder than it should have. The fog lingered low across the ground. Her shoes crunched over glass. The air felt heavy, thick with something unseen. Then she noticed something chilling. Every house window had curtains pulled slightly open, as if someone or something was watching. The wrong turn wasn't a mistake. It was an invitation. Erin stepped cautiously through the center of the town. Her footsteps muffled by a strange layer of dust covering the cobblestone streets. The buildings were intact but lifeless, windows smeared with grime, and store signs faded by time. An old swing creaked in the wind beside a collapsed schoolhouse, yet there was no breeze. The silence was thick, almost humming. She called out, her voice echoing too far, swallowed by empty alleyways. Her skin prickled as she passed a church with a collapsed steeple, its bell long gone. But what disturbed her most were the windows. Every single one had a gap in the curtain, just wide enough for someone, or something, to watch from inside. She approached the boarded-up diner, its sign hanging by one rusted chain, the word, Mel's, barely readable in peeling red paint. The glass door was cracked but unlocked. A small bell chimed when she stepped inside, the sound unnaturally sharp in the stillness. The booths were perfectly arranged, Nina still resting on tables like the customers had simply vanished mid-meal. Flies buzzed silently over a dried, rotted plate of eggs. The smell of decay mingled with rust and something sweet. Behind the counter, the air grew colder. A wall lined with Polaroid photos caught her eye. Dozens of them, pinned in rows, all dated. Each photograph showed different people. Some alone, some in pairs, all standing at a familiar fork in a forest road. Some smiled nervously, others looked terrified. Then her heart stilled. The last photo, recently pinned, showed her standing beside her car at the Devil's Path sign. The angle was high, taken from above. She hadn't noticed anyone, let alone a camera. Her mouth went dry. The air shifted. The light bulbs above flickered, buzzing as though breathing. She turned toward the windows, suddenly aware of eyes she couldn't see. A slow creak came from behind the counter. She didn't look. She ran. Erin burst out of the diner and staggered into the street, gasping. But the layout of the town had changed. The street she came from was no longer there. Just rows of unfamiliar houses and twisted alleyways. Her car was gone. The signs on the buildings had altered, now in a language she didn't recognize. The sky had turned from dusk to a deep, unnatural navy. The air was heavier. The silence now felt intentional, as if the town had noticed her presence and was adjusting. She wasn't lost in a forgotten place. She had been absorbed into it. Erin wandered deeper into the warped version of the town, the air colder with each step. In the distance, the church loomed like a rotting sentinel, its broken bell tower piercing the navy sky. Drawn by instinct or dread, she crossed the cracked pavement and pushed open the doors. They groaned like something in pain. Inside, the pews were aligned neatly, yet covered in a thick layer of dust. At the altar, the stained glass windows depicted scenes she couldn't recognize. People being led into fog, mirrors swallowing souls. Behind the pulpit, a spiral staircase climbed into the shadows above. Something about it called to her, pulling her upward. Each step on the staircase moaned beneath her weight. The wood was damp and sticky, and the air grew tighter as she ascended. The narrow passage coiled like a tunnel, lit by nothing but faint crimson light leaking through cracks in the tower walls. When she reached the top, she saw him, a tall, motionless figure in a black, ceremonial robe, symbols etched across the fabric in what looked like blood and ash. His face was hidden beneath a wide-brimmed, dusty hat. His back faced her, yet he spoke in a rasped whisper that echoed inside her skull. "You shouldn't be Herod, but you chose this." Erin backed up, heart pounding, but the door had vanished behind her. The figure slowly turned, revealing a face that wasn't a face. Just empty skin stretched over bone. No mouth, only hollow eye sockets. He held out an object, a cracked, hand-held mirror, smeared with soot and old fingerprints. "Look," he whispered. Hesitant, she took it and froze. In the reflection, she stood at the edge of the town, like before. But her reflection didn't move. It stared straight ahead with completely black eyes, a distorted grin spreading slowly across its face. Then the figure whispered, "That version of you made it out." "You didn't." The mirror grew hot in her hands. She dropped it, and it shattered across the bell tower floor. The moment it broke, the figure collapsed into ash, sucked out the shattered window by a wind that came from nowhere. But the whisper didn't stop. It echoed now from inside her head. "One will leave, the other will remain." Erin stumbled down the stairs, but they spiraled longer than before, stretching into impossible angles. The world below seemed further away. The line between herself and her reflection had begun to blur, and something told her she was no longer the original. Erin finally reached the bottom of the endless staircase, her legs trembling and breath shallow. The church was different now, longer, darker, filled with ticking sounds. Following the sound, she exited into a narrow alleyway that twisted like a maze, the sky above now a pulsing gray. She stumbled upon a crooked building with rusted iron lettering, Miller's timepieces. The door swung open on its own. Inside, dozens of antique clocks lined the walls, shelves, even the ceiling. All were frozen at 2:17 a.m., their hands twitching slightly, as if straining against some invisible force. Erin stepped carefully inside. The ticking stopped the moment she entered, and the air dropped 10 degrees. The shop smelled like dust and copper. Erin glanced around cautiously. her gaze landing on a grandfather clock taller than her. Its glass surface reflected not her face, but the robed man from the bell tower, standing directly behind her. She spun around. No one there. She turned back to the clock, but now it showed her own image, eyes dark, expression blank. Suddenly, every clock in the room began ticking violently, shaking as if alive. Then, all at once, they struck the hour, twice. The booming chimes overlapped, an unbearable chorus of sound that pierced her skull and rattled her vision. The clocks screamed time, but none of it felt real. As the chimes faded, a whisper echoed through the shop. "You're not the first. You're just the one who stayed." The clocks began melting, literally dripping, warping like they were made of wax. The floor beneath her pulsed like a heartbeat. Erin stumbled back into a glass cabinet that crashed down, sending shattered reflections across the floor. In each shard, she saw dozens of versions of herself, crying, screaming, running, burning. One of them was staring directly at her, reaching out from the broken glass with blackened, charred fingers. She blinked, and it was gone. The clocks had all vanished. The shop was empty. Only her reflection remained in the floor, slowly smiling. She bolted for the door, but the street outside was wrong again. The buildings had rearranged. The signs were in reverse. The sky had turned into a canvas of spinning gears and blinking stars. She turned in circles, desperate for direction, but every path was unfamiliar. Erin wasn't sure if she was still in the town, or inside something else entirely. Her thoughts scattered like leaves in a storm. Then came a sound, not footsteps, but the click, click, click of spinning clock hands behind her. She ran, but wherever she went, time was chasing her, bending around her, pulling her closer to a moment she would never escape. Erin stumbled out of the warped street and into a clearing where the trees thinned just enough to show the outline of a familiar road. Her heart surged with fragile hope. There, at the edge of the path, was her car, untouched. She sprinted toward it, breath ragged, eyes filled with panic and disbelief. The fog was thinner here, and the distorted sky above seemed to peel back into something closer to dawn. She climbed into the car, slammed the door, and turned the key. The engine roared to life. Relief rushed through her like fire. But as she backed out, her headlights caught something in the rearview mirror herself, still standing outside. Frozen, she looked again. The version of her outside the car tilted its head, smiling wide with unnatural precision. Then it simply walked away, vanishing into the trees. Erin gripped the wheel tighter, shaking. She didn't look back again. The road reappeared beneath her wheels, winding through the forest like a thread guiding her home. After minutes of tense driving, the trees gave way to familiar fields. Her GPS flickered back, and her phone chimed with messages. Civilization returned. She cried, overwhelmed, and pulled into the next gas station, needing to breathe. But something felt wrong. Everything was too quiet. Inside the station, the air was cold, stale. The cashier never looked up. Erin asked where she was, but he didn't respond. He just handed her a Polaroid photo, freshly printed. It was her, standing at the edge of the detour sign again. Her stomach turned. She looked around. The clocks on the wall were all stuck at 2:17 a.m. A radio played in reverse. In the bathroom mirror, her reflection blinked twice, slowly, and didn't follow her movements. She backed away, terrified. Then noticed a line of Polaroids taped along the wall by the exit. Every one of them showed people who had escaped, but never really left. Erin ran back to her car, heart pounding, fumbling with the keys. But the road outside was no longer the one she came from. It was the town again, rebuilt, brighter, full of people walking silently, smiling with vacant eyes. She screamed, but no sound left her throat. The reflection in the rearview mirror grinned back at her, eyes black, lips mouthing something she couldn't hear. The car doors locked on their own. The radio turned on, playing the ticking of clocks. Erin realized too late that she hadn't escaped at all. She had only completed the circle. She had taken the final turn.